Hello, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, and dudes of all teenagers, as well as the gals. My name is Christian Chandler. I am here, and y'all are there. This message is for everyone of the present and the future beyond this date, February 24th, 2007, my birthday, my 25th birthday. I am high-functioning autistic, and in my 25 years, I have seen and learned so much. And today, I intended to share some wise words that I hope each and every one of you will take to heart and allow for yourself and everyone else a better, brighter future.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Juju Panda back in action to talk about something else today. By something else, it's going to be about Christian. So, did you miss me, guys? I'd never want to spend a minute away from you. But, yeah, this has sort of been on my mind recently. I mean, with the whole Christian going to jail and all that stuff. I mean, a lot of people considered that to be the end of Christory as we knew it, because, or Chrisvangelion, if you prefer. Because, obviously, the entire saga, or sagas, I should say, have sort of been, how do I put this? There's sort of a dark shadow cast over them, considering the extent and the magnitude of their last criminal act. And Christian is no stranger to breaking the law, alright? They've done it quite a few times throughout their history, but I just wanted to make this video as sort of a posterity, like, you know, posterity, maybe a little bit of prosperity, just something to put on the record about my understanding about Christian, because I'm sort of just I'm not like a devoted Christorian by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm aware of a lot of their activities leading up to the present day. I will say this, like, as just fully being transparent with you all, I kind of stopped paying attention to them about the time that they came out as trans and, like, started ranting and raving about the dimensional merge. I'm loosely aware of some of the things that happened in that time period, but it wasn't really, like, predominant on my mind, because, you know, I had better shit to worry about, like my own damn self and the people in my life, or at least used to be in my life and are no longer. But, you know, you'll all be happy to know that new people came into my life after that, so yeah, this is just how life goes, I guess, sometimes. But yeah, Christian. I guess what sort of, like, brought me to Christian, or I should say, the information about them, because I actually did see Christian once in my life, like, you know, in real life. And I already mentioned this in the prior video, but in case you didn't figure it out the first time, they were at Magfest, and Magfest, if you're not aware, is like sort of a music festival convention. It takes place at the Gaylord, yeah, queer name, huh? Gaylord, like, convention center down near Washington, D.C. It's like right on the bay. It's the same place that Katsucon takes place. If you don't know what Katsucon is, it's an anime convention, so a weeb convention. I would have to say that Magfest is arguably the more fun of the two. Katsucon has nice cosplayers and a nice environment to cater to, but Magfest really brings out the party animals and the sense of fun factor that you'd want to see. Because it's sort of like a convention celebrating everything that internet culture is, and like pop culture in general, as well as good music and drink and alcohol and stuff like that, in a fairly cool place, the Gaylord. In spite of the fact that a fucking chicken sandwich is like $25, $50, like $30, and, like, you know, an egg sandwich is like $10. And it's just like, yo, did Wolfgang Puck himself make this? Like, you know, and just come, like, they're working in the kitchen, and you try to offer them a regular egg, and, like, they smack it out of your hands. They're like, get me the fucking golden goose egg. Anyway, nah. Christian, they were actually looking fairly healthy overall, like, as an individual. Because, like, considering that the fact that they live out of McDonald's and, like, you know, fast food restaurants, you'd expect them to be close to death at this point. I mean, but I have a theory about Christian, alright? My theory is that they have been eating McDonald's and TV dinners for the extent of their entire life, and a little bit of applesauce, because you need some roughage to, you know, sort of equalize all that. But they've been doing this for so long, subjecting their body to all of these preservatives, that their body has absorbed enough preservatives that Christian will arguably live forever. Like, you know, if an infection, that's why when they cut their taint, like trying to, like, make themselves a new vagina, that's why they didn't die from an infection. The infection died right then and there, because the infection, as it tried to infect the rest of the body, was stopped by the sheer amount of preservatives packed in their body was enough to kill the virus. or I should say the bacteria, right before it spread outwards. So that's why Christian didn't die. And I would say it's shocking that they survived that, because that's quite easily something that could have, like, killed lesser people. Like, you know, that would merit, like, a doctor's visit at the very least. But Christian ain't for that healthcare, yo, so they didn't go. Alright. Anyway, I just want to provide, like, a basic timeline, and when I say all this, I would just like to tell you all that not being, like, a dedicated Christorian that has studied every fucking document and piece of information, I have a basic overall awareness. I just want to give, like, an oral retelling of my understanding of Christian and Christian's life story to this point, because, you know, I at the very least, I would like to be on record. I'd like to be existent somewhere, you know, just something that we can remember him by, or her by, if you prefer. Again, I don't really respect Christian's gender pronouns, because it was a massive ploy just to get chicks and women and pussy. Not trying to be crass when I say that, I'm just being real with y'all. Because, let's be honest, Christian's love quest was all about getting laid. And they eventually got laid, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Alright, so Christian Weston Chandler. Obviously, Christian and his life wasn't really exposed to the public until well into the age of the internet, alright? We're talking about when Christian was in his 20s and he gained access to that, but the things that we're aware of him is largely either told through him and, like, to a lesser degree, some of the appearances on the media that he had. So, like, his childhood was, I would have said, happy-ish, but they were a very sheltered child, alright? Like, the one media appearance they had was on a local news network. They won a $1,000 shopping spree. This is quite a few years after they're born, obviously, so they're, like, you know, 7 to 8 years old, maybe a little older. But, you know, you just have Christian in his sparkly, like, you know, striped shirt. It's got, like, red, yellow, and green. It's like something a toddler would wear. But they're basically talking with a dead-eyed voice and just a monotone voice to, like, you know, news anchor woman that's, like, questioning him and saying, you know, I entered my name to be in a drawing, and they put my name in a hat and draw it out of the hat, and I won. And some people think that that was sort of the start of Christian's entitlement complex, because Christian has had a bit of a history following that point where they always just expect things to happen their way. If it doesn't, they either get really, really angry or really, really sad. One of the two. But, like, as far as, like, them being born and all that stuff, like, it's not very interesting, I would say. I'll just go put a caveat here. Let's focus on the interesting tidbits of information that we can glean from this, and then sort of judge it later, alright? So, they won a $1,000 shopping spree. And what's interesting is that, to sort of, like, juxtapose Christian's mindset, like, that was all for him, okay? Like, he didn't share, to my knowledge, with anybody else. It was all that $1,000 was for him and what he wanted, and, you know, that's just how it went. Because in the news story that I listened to, the newscaster, they actually mentioned a girl that won out in California, and she shared, like, the winnings with the rest of her classmates, which is a very nice thing to do. A little bit communistic, but, you know, at the same time, very heartwarming that she would consider her classmates worth, like, receiving a share of $1,000 to go out and get toys. You know, that's kind of cool. But Christian doesn't think that way. Everything's for him, because he's kind of narcissistic like that. I guess, like, Christian's narcissism really derives from the man-child antics that would follow him throughout life, because a lot of children, I have a friend that actually, like, really dislikes children, and one of the reasons that, like, he tells me is that they're narcissistic little bastards that, like, just think about themselves, and they're selfish and kind of sociopathic in a way. I think that's a mechanism because they lack the maturity to really understand, like, beyond themselves. You know, they only know certain things. They obviously feel, if they're a normal child, like, well-suited, well-acclimated to, like, you know, crowds, they're going to feel emotions like guilt or regret or things like that if they do something stupid or wrong. But if they don't care, then they end up becoming like a Bella or Christian. Anyway. So that was one of their first media appearances, you know, which is interesting. I mean, like, Christian has appeared on the news a couple times, not just more recently. It's almost prophetic. But yeah, but like their school life was not very good, and Christian would do things in school like they were diagnosed with high functioning autism or just autism. I forget what the actual determination was at the time, but now it would be like classified as autism. And like they would act out in school, and so, you know, he told very exaggerated stories about how the teachers would like abuse him and how he was like held on a principal's lap and that the principal was gay. That Christian's words. So like take all of his claims with a grain of salt. Or maybe I should say a fistful of salt, if the heart attack doesn't kill you. Because, like, Christian has a little bit of a bad habit of exaggerating things, like, massively. Granted, they're also the same kind of individual that would believe, like, that real life is like a cartoon show. But, yeah, so, like, whether or not these claims are true or not, the only real, like, truth that we have to this is that the school, because Christian was acting out, not really behaving like the other students were, and that they were having a hard time figuring out, like, how to educate him, they basically, like, you know, said to the, like, Chandler family, hey, listen, we really think that Christian needs to be put into a special needs school, alright? And Bob and Barbara Chandler, they wanted the best for their child, so they basically argued and fought back against the school, you know, regarding that. And they lost in court, alright? Like, Christian retells a lot of this story in his own words, but, like, you know, you kind of have to read between the lines, because Christian, he lies sometimes, and he exaggerates things. It's entirely possible that the principal, like, I'm just putting my 2 cents on this, the principal wasn't doing that to, like, you know, be gay and, like, rub his dick all over Christian's ass. If it was, that would put a dark spin to all of this. But what I think it was probably, like, one of the highly inappropriate, like, you wouldn't see somebody doing that now, considering everything that's happened, you know, child molesters and pedophiles and pedobears and things like that. But what I think happened was, like, the principal was just trying to, like, be like that grandfatherly type and, like, try to get through to Christian and tell them, hey, listen, your behavior isn't exactly conducive to this type of environment. Probably like a country gentleman would, or something like that. I don't know. Like, I have a weird imagination, so do not take any of this as absolute fact. In fact, don't take anything that Christian says as absolute fact. All of this is based on his words and our interpretation of it. Because I don't think anybody, like, from the school actually, like, appeared publicly to say one way or the other what happened. But what we do know is that this did go to court, and, like, the school wanted Christian put into a special needs school, and the Chandler family wanted him to stay put. And eventually the Chandler family lost. And rather than, like, you know, concede to their wishes, Bob Chandler basically moved the family, at least for Chris's, like of his school life in elementary school, to another school to have Christian, you know, properly educated. So yeah. But obviously that raises some connotations here. The abuse that Christian had received, like, he legitimately believed that he was abused by the teachers and the principal. And the principal was probably gay because, you know, put him on his lap and, you know, taunted him or something like that. That's what Christian's saying. I'm not like, again, we don't know if that's actually valid. I highly doubt it, but at this point, anything's possible. Alright. So, Christian, obviously, he's growing up. He's like a fine young lad. Alright? Not really a bad person. Just, you know, maybe acts out a bit, has autism. You know, nothing that a rambunctious little child like him isn't that unusual. Alright, so they get a babysitter one day. And Christian really wanted to talk to this babysitter, but the babysitter wasn't having any of it because she was on the phone. And Christian was trying to talk to her, and the babysitter got so fed up with it that basically she grabbed Christian, threw a bunch of toys into a closet, and locked him in. Now, Christian has said and gone on to say that that was such a traumatic experience for him that he didn't speak for like a couple years. and supposedly that's true. I don't think, I don't know. That seems horribly cruel of the babysitter to do, but it's not that surprising, especially if like the high school or if the babysitter was like a high schooler or something like that. High schoolers wouldn't be well equipped to deal with a special needs like child. All right, they're probably going to take the easy option. It's like, all right, well, he's in a safe environment, surrounded by his toys. What more can he possibly want? I am curious though. Was like the closet? Did it have a light? Like, was he just in the darkness and could only see the light through like the floor cracks or something like that? Because that's definitely going to change like the experience for Christian. But yeah, supposedly that experience was so traumatic because it was like an entire night. Bob and Barbara, if you're wondering, they just wanted a night out. They needed a break. All right, I'm sure most parents would. Like, having to take care of your kids, that's a full-time job. Sometimes you need a little bit of a break. All right. Nothing that most parents wouldn't normally do. I mean, babysitters get called all the time for kids, although sometimes they rely upon a family member or, like, you know, a relative to do it, as opposed to a full-blown stranger that they have no idea whether they're going to be good for the kids or the kids are going to be bad for the, you know, babysitter. Who knows? But for Christian, they were a mute for like a couple of years. They just would not talk to anybody, and I believe they did receive some form of counseling, but for the most part, they were just kind of like very introverted. And it was during that time period that, you know, Christian would go out to like the local malls and things like that, and if they wanted a toy, they would sort of point at it, and Barbara, like in sort of spoiling Christian, would buy it for him. And that's just how it kind of went for a while. Like Transformers action figures and things like that, Barbara wanted to get Christian out of his shell, probably. Because what's important to note about Barb is that Cole Smithy, he's the half-brother of Christian, the one that we know about. Cole Smithy, like, he felt that Barbara was abusive as a mother. Whether or not that's true, we don't know, because Cole obviously didn't go into the length of it, but he absolutely hates Bob Chandler. Because Bob is like that old country conservative type, even though he's definitely a registered Democrat. But he's obviously got an old-fashioned way of looking at things. Anyway, yeah, Cole Smithy had less than favorable things to say about Barbara and his childhood with her. So I don't think that carried over on Chris, because my theory is that Barbara and Bob kind of acknowledged that Cole, like, being so angry at them and moving out of the house and going off to start his life in New York, they probably looked at Christian and were like, all right, well, we got this young son now. We need to do the best for him that we can possibly do. Unfortunately, the way that their parenting style seems to have unfolded leads me to believe that there was varying levels of love shared between them. However, it was also offset by the fact that both Bob and Barbara had hobbies of their own. I don't think Barbara had that many hobbies. I think she just watched television all day, and Bob's the one that, like, he'd work on, like, listening to jazz music and was very knowledgeable about it, to the point that he actually appeared on a radio show and just, like, did a lot of hobbies on his own if he wasn't watching TV, and kind of let the house go to hell, because I'm getting too far ahead of myself. All right, so I don't really know about their childhood, apart from what Christian has said and what other people have said. Because, like, Christian wouldn't talk for a couple years, but something very, very special happened at a particular mall. And, sorry about that. There was a sort of, like, traveling mechanical bear band. Like, they were basically like animatronics that you'd see from, like, Chuck E. Cheese's or something like that. Berenstein and the Bear Orchestra. I want to say that's the name of the band, but I don't have any idea. But basically, it was a mechanicalized orchestra where one person was sort of being the puppet master behind the scenes, and that he could talk to people based on the audio receiver on the bear and the speaker that was in the bear's mouth to simulate the fact that he could communicate. And there was one time, I believe it was around Christmas time, don't quote me on that one, but I've seen it in action. It's interesting looking, but you know, Christian was almost transfixed on that, like, on one day. And so there wasn't a whole lot going on at that mall at that particular time. So Christian goes up to, the bear and starts talking to it. And, the bear conductor is just kind of like, hey, so what's your name, kid? And it's like, Christian. Or I should say, Chris. Something I should, like, I just spilled the beans on that completely. My apologies. But, Chris's name was actually not Christian, like, at first. Like, it became that later. Their name was actually Christopher, but it was legally changed by his parents. And Bob wanted to call him Christian, supposedly, but chickened out at the last minute for whatever reason. So, like, Chris's official original name was actually Christopher. He says Christopher, and the bear misheard him because I guess the audio was bad that day, and picks up on that. It's like, oh, Christian, huh? And this is very significant to Christian because Christian almost considers that bear conductor to be tantamount to like a sort of deity, like a godly figure. Because he references like the bear conductor a lot in his later oratory against trolls and various other individuals that wish him harm. God and the bear is pretty much what he would say. But we're getting far ahead of ourselves. Let us get back to this. So, Christian considered that to be a sign from God that his name was supposed to be Christian. So he had his name legally changed to Christian. And from that point on, he would be Christian Weston Chandler, also shortened to Chris Chan, which is an abbreviation of his first name and his last name, Chris Chan, complete. Alright, so they had it legally changed, and Chris Chan's grown up nice and well. Alright, there's not a whole lot of information about like the lead up, apart from maybe some childhood friends, like this one girl named Sarah. She was like a family friend that anytime that she and her family would have to watch Christian, she seemed to take advantage of him, like his curiosity about things or his gullible nature. Like, for instance, she convinced him to go into the crawl space of a house because she said that Casper the Friendly Ghost lived down there. And Christian, being Christian, was like, ooh, I want to meet Casper the Friendly Ghost. Crawls down there, probably finds a bunch of dead bugs and other debris down there, and it's all messy and has to get rescued by the parents later. And she also tried to convince Christian, hey, if you bite the head off of this honeysuckle and lick it, it's going to taste just like honey. Honeysuckle is actually mildly poisonous to humans, so don't do that if you value your digestional tract and stuff like that. But Christian was saved by the parents before he even tried that, so didn't happen. But Christian never really held it against, Sarah. God bless him, or should I say, God condemn him for what he's done recently. But yeah, he never really saw it as malice. He always saw it as just her being mischievous and like just playing around. All right. Well, Christian's getting a little older at this point, all right? He is coming into his own as an individual. Unfortunately, for Christian, throughout the entirety of their story, I feel like everybody around Christian, especially in a school setting, was vastly outpacing his ability to keep up. Like, they develop and mature into, young teenagers or older teenagers, like in their late teenage years. And, being typical high school students, but Christian's kind of lagging behind. I guess, George W. had Christian in mind when he came out with the whole No Child Left Behind Act. I don't know. It just seems like Christian didn't quite come into his own. But in Christian, as far as like Christian standards, he's definitely coming to his own now. In high school, he had what he called gal pals, because Christian was, this, and I'm using a gal pal's description of Christian. They spoke on it years later after the fact, like having known Christian. So these girls would basically protect Christian and let them hang out with them, but they didn't really hang out outside of school. The reason for that is that Bob, actually recognizing the fact that Christian was probably not going to be able to make a whole lot of friends on their own accord, he actually paid some girls to just make sure that he was, safe and well protected and stuff like that. Just make sure that he was taken care of by some people that could see his best interests at the end of the day. And to be fair, like, the girls did take him under his wing and did show up at some of his birthday parties and, generally try to make him feel good at all times about whatever was going on. Which, even though they're getting paid for it, I'd say, given Christian's wild antics and, what's crazy is that Christian actually considered high school to be some of the best years of his life. I don't know why, but I guess that was the perfect environment because by this point, he was sort of beyond the whole elementary, kindergarten school years of him being considered an autistic man-child. He could really come into his own here and do whatever he felt like doing. And, he was in largely a, safe environment and could just do whatever he wanted to do. The problem is, a lot of students picked on him, unsurprisingly, because, Christian being who he is, his wild and crazy antics, and there's a lot to sort of poke fun at. But in Christian's case, something very important happened during his high school years. Basically, what ended up happening was that he had a particular shop class. I'm trying to remember if it was like a computer shop class or something like that. But basically, he had to design a CD box art cover. And Christian wanted to use, Pikachu. Here's the problem. Pikachu is a copyrighted intellectual property held by Nintendo. And not only was Bob sort of insistent on Christian doing something original, but the teacher was as well. Just saying, okay, no copyrighted material. We want you to come up with something on your own, all right? Something completely original. So Christian got to thinking, and he came up with his magnum opus, Sonichu. A ungodly abomination blend of Sonichu, Sonic the Hedgehog, and Pikachu to make Sonichu. He was going to zap to the extreme. He was going to stick it to Dr. Eggman. He was going to be the next thing since sliced bread. At least in Chris's mind. I've seen the box art. It's interesting to see where the origin of this is. Christian made a bunch of different little side projects during those years. This cursed fucking Sonic the Hedgehog idol. Looks like something out of Silent Hill. It actually sold for $5,000 on eBay. Do you believe that shit? But anyway. So yeah, Christian, this was sort of the series of years that he was sort of coming into his own. He had the ability to socialize with people. He came out and would actually open up from the shell of his, inherently introverted nature to engage with people. All right, that's great. And the gal pals were always there to make sure that he didn't get into too much trouble because they made the observation that a lot of the special needs in autistic children received a lot of negative attention from their fellow classmates, and that they noticed that in spite of the fact that Christian could freely communicate with people and not well, but they could, they got the worst out of a lot of people, which was surprising to them. So they felt sort of guilty and obligated, especially considering that Bob was paying them, to take care of Christian. All right, so Christian did a lot of things. They wrote a very bad report on the reasons that America went to war with Japan during World War II. And they would routinely, use... They studied, Espanol. All right, they studied Spanish as a spoken language during that time period. And, I actually took Spanish as well. I don't remember a lick of it at this point in my life, but they always, assigned you a nickname for, who you were in that class. And for Christian, it was Ricardo. And he would actually sign some of his assignments as Ricardo. Even though he wasn't supposed to do that because, you only sign your name as Ricardo as is applicable for the class, but Christian used it interchangeably. And, it didn't really seem to faze him. Granted, he's autistic, so his mental state and the way that he processes logic is a little bit different from the rest of us. But it's worth noting They got docked some points for that. I believe the report got like a C-, maybe a D+. One of the two. But yeah, to no one's surprise, they weren't exactly a stellar student. But they did try, and they were sort of well-meaning, but they were also ungodly annoying. I believe this was the same time period that this happened, but don't quote me on this. But Christian would make sojourns to the local mall and various other places like the Game Place. If you don't know what the Game Place was, the Game Place was basically like a Hobby Lobby. Or, not, I shouldn't say Hobby Lobby. Games Workshop. It was kind of like a privatized game workshop where kids could bring their own consoles, play Magic the Gathering, play Pokemon, which was the latest and greatest craze at the time, or play, various tabletop games, or play video games if they so wanted to, and they could buy from the store and buy snacks and things like that. It was one of the few bastions of hope that Christian could have, possibly come upon. And, Christian being who Christian is, they sort of became the equivalent of barfly at the establishment. The mall, though, this is a different story, because, Christian would sort of develop an animosity towards authority figures. But maybe I'm getting a little bit too far ahead of myself, because Christian's high school career, in spite of the fact that they went above, or at least they feel as though they went above and beyond in having, developed the social skills necessary to have a full-blown conversation with people, to be able to know a lot of people, making a lot of friends, and being able to live the high school life, they felt like they should have earned some sort of award of recognition. This is going to hit to a zenith because they actually appear on stage at graduation to receive their diploma. The problem is, they didn't receive any special awards or special recognition for anything that they've done, in spite of how Christian feels, that they have gone above and beyond to display exemplary performance and improvement in their life, their academic life. So Christian is so distraught by this that at the time of graduation, and this is actually on video, that's the shocking thing, he doesn't shake anybody's hand, he just receives his diploma, and he just has this sulky, angry expression on his face, and just goes back to the audience and sits down. This was all recorded, by the way. Or maybe the Mandela effect is infecting my brain, but I do remember watching that particular part, his graduation video. I'm sure it's something that's a golden piece of media for Christian himself, because oddly enough, like I said before, Christian considered this the best years of his life. He was having the time of his life, knowing surrounded by all these attractive gal pals that would take care of him. And the gal pals had some very interesting things to say about him after the fact. They said that they didn't really feel threatened by Christian because he seemed like this sad, lost little boy that just looked to them as sort of mother figures to protect them. And they're like, yeah, it's kind of creepy, thinking about it now, but at the time, he seemed harmless enough. That's obviously going to take a dark turn further down the road, but we're not even close to being there yet. Alright, so Christian has officially graduated from high school. All of the people that he knew in high school have gradually drifted away from him, including his oh-so-special gal pals, because the gal pals actually did appear at some of his birthday parties, at his house, and, had cake with him, and would, appear outside of school occasionally, but they didn't really hang out that often. It was a once-in-a-blue-moon opportunity that Christian would get that sort of treatment. Usually they kept their distance, they kept their social lives up outside of school. In school was a different story, because it's okay, we're locked in this fucking institution for the next 8 hours. Let's make the best of it. And they were getting money for it, so, I don't fault them too much. I mean, considering the fact that they had the patience to deal with Christian, I would applaud them, even though they were getting paid. Yeah, I would applaud them. But a lot of them had moved on to their own daily lives. Some went to college. Christian did a little thing called community college. And, at community college, he had to commute to college, but at the same time, the important thing to consider here is the fact that going to community college, you're surrounded by college students. People that are, allegedly more mature than high school students and actually have an inkling of what they know, what they want to do with the rest of their lives, because, you know, they have ambitions of their own, or maybe they just want to make sure that they get a good full-time job, and it's something to truly behold, like academic achievement and progress in the face of all that. But Christian, he didn't really know what he wanted to do, and he asked some people like his father, like, what should I go to college for? And it's like, I don't know, just pick something that you're good at, maybe marketing, maybe finance. And Christian did, until he realized that he wasn't really all for that and went for a CAD degree, basically computer aided design. They didn't really use that too much because, well, have you seen the way that Christian draws? Have you seen their personalized website? I can't really say that that is the product of years spent at an institution. Hell, 7 years. I can understand taking maybe 4 or 5 years, but 7 years for a CAD degree? Granted, this is a lot. There's a lot more nuance here than I give it credit for, so we'll get to that. But so Christian, he's going to college now. But like I said before, it started in high school. It continued in college. He would make weekly sojourns to the local mall and the game place because they were their hangout spots. While I believe he was in high school, Christian actually appeared on the news again. And it was regarding the new, like, craze of Pokemon. So that'd be about 1998, I would imagine. Like, I'm guessing when I say that. But I'm just going from personal experience. I was a little kid at the time. 1998, probably. Yeah. So Christian is, like, you know, he's going to the game place, playing Pokemon cards. And, you know, actually went to actually play the game, because I never learned how to play Pokemon. I just collected the cards. Granted, I didn't have like a hell of a lot of people to play with, so I wouldn't really know where to start, what to do, or how to do it. But it's, you know, something you pick up once. I think Magic the Gathering would be more my speed, but I just don't have the time these days. You know, with the YouTube channel and like working a full-time job and got all these other side projects going on. Anyway. So, like, Christian appeared on the news again, and was just talking about the craze of, you know, Pokemon as it was, and, like, how the game sort of had Byzantine rules, but whenever, like, the stores would open, like, parents and children would go to those stores to dig deep and pay big for Pokemon cards. So that's just something that Christian would do. But also, whenever he went to the mall, the reason I mentioned that he got into sort of, like, animosity directed at authority figures is the simple fact that he would loiter a lot. See, Christian, he was starting to feel lonely because the people at college were not going to have the time or wherewithal to put up with his bullshit. All right? I don't think many of us would. But, you know, Christian, he needed an escape. He needed something to do. And, like, he had started in high school and continued through college, but he was making webcomics. You know, Sonichu, like I mentioned before. He came out with a character called Bionic, which actually has nothing to do with cybernetics. Bionic was named because it rhymed with Sonic, it started with a B, and they were orange like a basketball. And Christian said that the idea came to him when he was hit in the head with a basketball. What an origin story. But that was in high school. In college, well, Christian, he was feeling lonely because nobody was really giving him the time of day, and the students there just did not have the patience to put up with his bullshit for very long. So Christian decided to start what was called the Love Quest. If you don't know what the Love Quest is, the Love Quest was Christian's solemn belief that if he managed to get a boyfriend-free girl, that all of his problems would magically just go away. And, you know, that just seems ironic to me. I've been in relationships, all right? I'm not currently in one, so ladies or femboys out there, if you're interested. Nah, I kid. But in all seriousness, though, Christian started Love Quest with the solemn belief that it was just going to wipe his problems clean off the map. And I would say, like, being in relationships, like, having been in relationships, like, yeah, it might solve your problems of loneliness and needing somebody to, like, care for and care for you. But it's also going to open the door to a hell of a lot more problems, which is something that Christian never seemed to understand. Because, like, he had, like, a litany of, like, you know, desired qualifications in his desired girlfriend. Like, for instance, and I'm like, I am not trying to be racist here. I am quoting, like, Christian. I actually found, like, some things about, like, Christian's attraction sign. Because, like, that's what he would do. He would hang an attraction sign or hand out business cards, like, you know, trying to advertise his shitty website about Sonichu and stuff. But, like, mostly he would go out to, like, public places, whether it was the mall, McDonald's, or, like, you know, his college campus, to try to attract a girlfriend. And I'm, like, split. You know, like, obviously, that's not very socially acceptable. I mean, the attraction sign didn't even look that good. But at the same time, like, is it really harming anybody except offending, like, you know, your desires for something socially awkward? I guess not. But at the same time, you know, he did it to such an increasing regularity that it started to attract a lot of negative attention, alright? Like, for instance, he would put, like, okay, so Christian is slightly racist. Did I say slightly racist? I mean very racist. And homophobic and sexist, but we're getting into all that. Basically, they came out and were just like, hey, looking for a boyfriend-free girlfriend, preferably between the ages of 18 to 25. I think it started at 25 and went up to 27 because that's about the time span that, you know, that was relevant to Christian. You know, must be straight. No medium to dark chocolate, please. Must be white. No medium to dark chocolate. And, like, other variations of the signs was, like, no darkies. Like, no darkies. And they would say, has to be employed. Like, has to drive a car. Has to be tall or, like, you know, good looking. And can't be autistic. Can't be low to mentally functioning retarded. Real ugly. Like, just arbitrary things. And, like, had to be employed, apparently. And let me just tell you something right now with the autism part and the employed part. Christian, his work history was piss poor, alright? Even at the best of times. But we're going to get into that in a few minutes here. But it just seems horribly ironic to me that a lot of the qualifications that Christian looked for in a girlfriend were things that he could not do. Like, you know, has to drive a car, although he could drive a car, but like, has a job. He definitely did not have a job at the time that he was making that fucking advertisement, and he definitely had low functioning autism, although he likes to brag about being high functioning autistic. Given everything that he's guilty of and has done so far, I would say that he is, to quote my friend gingerly, low functioning. I'm not trying to be an asshole right now, but you can't tell me that that's high-functioning autistic. High-functioning autistic is like being able to solve math equations like a calculator, and like being bright enough and aware enough, but maybe not knowing how to tie your shoes. You know, fragmented sort of mental abilities. In Christian's case, he could barely fucking cook a meal. Yeah. So, all that to say that Christian's love quest lasted for a very long time. And it attracted the attention of one particular dean at the community college that he was attending, Mary Lee Walsh. And I'm just going to freely say her name because the name's been spoken so many times before. I don't want anybody to bother Mary Lee Walsh, okay? She probably wants to be as far away from the present bullshit as humanly possible, but it is worth noting. And yeah, like, Christian, like, was basically verbally, like, you know, chastised by Mary Lee Walsh. She tried to discipline Chris. Basically was just like, okay, like, listen, you cannot be doing this, alright? You are soliciting, okay? You're trying to solicit for sex on this campus, alright? And this is not something that we are going to, like, find acceptable here at the college campus. And, you know, Christian just kind of, he didn't get it, because he would try a couple times. Because in Christian's mind, he felt like, you know, she was getting in the way of his chances to find true love. I don't know anybody that would come up to a sign and be like, this person is advertising for a girlfriend. I wonder if I should apply. Because no self-respecting girl out there is going to probably go for that. Unless they're joking. You know, they're just like, they think it's like an act. Like some sort of like a joke. Like an elaborate joke. Because people don't fucking do that, in case you're wondering. Although now it's, you could get like it's anyone's guess what's acceptable now. I mean, you got Tinder and Grindr and shit like that. Who knows? But in Christian's case, they would try this at several different places, and they would constantly get into arguments with, like, you know, authority figures, like managers and police officers and security guards. Christians seemed to believe that security guards were synonymous with, like, the police, even though they're obviously, like, private security. They have to follow rules and regulations like police do, but at the same time, they're not the same. But, these started to take, like, forms in his comic. The webcomic I told you about, Sonichu. And, like, so, like, managers would become managerks that were always inexplicably against Christian. The cops became jerk-cops because, you know, Christian just did not like cops. He didn't like authority figures, but I guess the cops sort of earned more of his animus because they were constantly telling him, hey, no loitering when he was at the mall, or, hey, don't do that, don't do this, like, you know, at other places like McDonald's or things like that. Anyway, so Mary Lee Walsh, she has to approach Christian several times because Christian, he's kind of defiant in the face of authority. I mean, most of us probably are to some degree or another, but Christian kind of took it to another level. He didn't really understand why it was wrong for him to do this. You know, that he didn't understand how he was soliciting. He just thought he was being true and honest because he wanted a true and honest sweetheart. But he wasn't going to get a true and honest sweetheart. What he got was a stern talking to in fucking Mary Lee Walsh's back office, who, you know, basically she just said, all right, you need to stop this behavior right now, all right? And she, like, tore his attraction sign in front of him. And Christian took that very personally. I mean, I guess, like, technically that's personal property of Christian's. Like, she didn't really have a right to do that. But at the same time, Christian was doing something cringy and horrible. And even his own mother, Barbara, like, eventually had to tell him, hey, can you stop doing that? It makes you look retarded. Like, supposedly. It's just crazy. But as far as Mary Lee Walsh goes, Christian felt so strongly about all this that he gave her a curse ye ha me ha. If you don't know what a curse ye ha me ha is, it's basically Christian going, curse ye ha me ha, and sometimes cursing with that because he thinks he has the power to curse people and put a spell on them or something like that. But he got the idea from Dragon Ball Z, which was also pretty popular at the time period that this was all taking place. And I don't know. Like, I can only imagine what was going through Mary Lee Walsh's head in that moment. She was probably horribly confused and then just like, all right, I'm not dealing with a normal person anymore. I think I need to take administrative action against him. So she did. It also didn't help that Christian basically made a Mary Lee Walsh character in Soul Calibur. Like I think it was 5. Like, customized her so that she looked like Mary Lee Walsh, named her that, sent the recording to her house, like in the form of a burnt DVD or something like that. It was at that point that Mary Lee Walsh was feeling a little bit threatened, you know, because the implication is, like, Christian's showing that he's, like, stabbing or, like, hitting her with, like, a stick, like the bow staff, and, like, doing all this shit, like, in Soul Calibur 2, like, 5. I keep saying 2 because 2's my favorite, but 5 was pretty cool because you could customize characters and shit like that. But anyway, yeah, Christian was basically suspended from school for a year, or I should say expelled. And he also had to take anger management courses and basically just, you know, rehabilitate himself in some manner before he was allowed back on campus, because, you know, you can't be doing shit like that. Come on, man. That's mildly threatening. I mean, the Curse Kamehameha probably didn't help either. But so Christian, for a year, he was not allowed to come back on campus. I'm actually very curious how his parents reacted to all this, because Barb and Bob always seemed to take Christian's side, even though sometimes Christian did not deserve to have any defense for his, you know, wrongdoing in public. But, you know, relatives are going to stick by relatives, right? Blood's thicker than water. And Barb and Bob seemed kind of neglectful, but they also spoiled Christian. But that's fine. All right. So Christian, he's got to do something and go out there and make his way. Christian actually, you know, he had a couple jobs. He had one job where he worked at Burger King. Unfortunately, he didn't last too long at that job because he tried to make the kids, like, laugh. He went up to the kid and was just like, "Hey, kid, you want to listen to my Donald Duck impression?" And the Donald Duck impression was so frightening and scary and made the kid freak out that the father was just like, "Dude, what the fuck are you doing?" And complained to management. And the management was like, "Yeah, we really can't have you frightening small children like that. Nobody asked you to do this. You're disturbing the customers. You're fired." So they got fired. I feel like that's a little bit heavy-handed considering Christian's status. But at the same time, they didn't really try that hard to get a new job. They worked as a cutlery salesperson for a while, like selling cutlery, like knives and things like that, but that didn't last too long, and it's implied that a lot of the product that he was supposed to sell actually wound up at his house, that the Chandler family just used because they had access to it at this point. And, it's not like Christian was going to return it to the store that he was selling them for. I'm not sure how successful he was at selling cutlery, but I would imagine not very, considering that a lot of the products still remained with them. And anyway, like, they're going to the game place more often. The game place is their one sanctuary, the one sort of paradise oasis in a sea of hatred and coldness. Because Christian, he was trying to, find a girlfriend, but unfortunately that just wasn't working out. He eventually meets a girl by the name of Megan. And Megan is this brunette, dark-haired girl that sort of goth, sort of not. Sometimes people like to refer to her as the Wallflower because she didn't want anything to do with Christian's history. But there was an iconic picture of them both, in their high school years, where Christian's looking all happy to be beside her, and Megan has, a look of disgust, but her eyes are sort of, distant. She's, staring into the distance, trying to imagine and will her way away from having to be near Christian, because throughout the course of their friendship, Christian would do a lot of things to her, touch her, hug her, mess with her hair, do weird shit that she didn't really approve of, and it was constantly a sticking point that she would have to be like, "Dude, I just do not want you touching me, okay? I like you as a friend, but the touching has to stop, alright? You keep touching me for some reason. I don't understand why you keep touching me." And Christian being tone deaf and just not understanding the ramifications of, not touching people that don't want to be touched, kept doing it. And it really didn't start off as a loving interest at first. It was just a friendship. But over time, Christian began to see Megan as, a likely avenue for fulfilling his love quest. Because any girl in somebody's life is automatically a love conquest, right? Coworkers at work, check. People that you meet at, the fucking mall, check. Girl that serves you at Abercrombie and Fitch, check. Anybody. Everybody. At least that's what Christian thought. Personally, there's a whole lot of other layers to all this to unpack for a normal person, but remember, we're not dealing with a normal person here. We're dealing with Christian, okay? And I'm not trying to look down on him for the autism. I'm just saying that he has a different way of seeing things. The world is kind of a warped visage of what it would appear to the rest of us. Alright? Alright. Anyway. Christian, he's with increasing regularity, going to the game place. And it's about this time that as Christian is more widely exposed to the local Ruckersville area, more and more people have awareness of him and what he's all about. And it isn't until one day that his picture is actually posted on Something Awful. And basically, there's a detailed synopsis of his behavior. I think it's just him playing as little gameplays, Pokemon. They're just "Oh, dude, the worst thing I saw was this weirdo that would hand out business cards, very badly drawn business cards for his shitty webcomic called Sonichu. And this guy's so weird, dude." And it was from that point on that 4chan got wind of this, and that was kind of the end of Christian's peaceful reign, because up to that point, Christian's life, apart from the whole Mary Lee Walsh incident, was largely peaceful until the trolls found him, and then he was just made a target online. It's kind of shitty, but at the same time, Christian is just bizarre enough that would be hard not to laugh at that or cry. Those are your only two options, okay? You can either laugh or cry. Cry at the fact that such a pitiful human being exists. Because, like, Christian, I know there's a lot of sympathy for Christian. Christian, I would argue, did not deserve, like, the abuse, the borderline abuse that they got from the internet, like, in the years to come. But let's all acknowledge one token fact. They were never a good person. Okay, they weren't necessarily a bad person, but there was enough about them that was bad that would come out later that I can certifiably point at them and just be like, dude, you're a bad person. Like, you're not a terrible person, but you certainly have some aspects about you that are bad. You have the propensity to do good. You're not that problematic because, you know, at this point in time, he's basically a neckbeard, like a, you know, man-child. Not very harmful, but that's going to change in a bit. Anyway, Christian starts making videos and posting them, like, online somewhere. And they're, like, one of them, he was trying to give, like, a message to the future. And basically saying how, like, he thought that this would be used in, like, classrooms as, like, sort of part of sex ed, or trying to make it so that, like, girls knew what to do about guys and guys knew what to do about girls. And his advice basically broke down to, like, a message to the future from the past. And he's saying how if a guy has problems going out with a girl and he doesn't know how to talk to her, that he should get a My Little Pony, like, doll and pretend that that's a girl and talk to it. Because, you know, the best prep for you to, like, you know, get a girlfriend is to get yourself a My Little Pony action figure, or maybe a Barbie doll. How about a Barbie doll? Depends on who you are. Are you more for, like, you know, like a typical girl with, like, the hourglass shaped figure and stuff like that? Maybe, like, blonde hair. Yeah, get yourself a Barbie doll. Talk to that all day. See if it talks back. And if it starts talking back, you probably need medication because you're probably crazier than loco. Yeah, he actually, like, said that as advice. And for the girls, he said, all right, get yourself a Transformer action figure and talk to that. Act like it's the guy of your dreams that you want to woo and talk to, and, you know, just very bizarre stuff. Ironically, it's a lot of that older content that Christian came out with that was a lot more popular than more modern stuff, because more modern stuff is largely about him e-begging. It's not really interesting to watch. A lot of the interesting stuff was just the off-the-wall, like, ranting and raving that he would do in his earlier videos. But that's okay. I mean, Christian's just starting out, alright? He's going to wow the internet in his own way. He's picking up with the webcomics. I believe each page of the webcomic takes about an hour. The quality of the artwork for Sonichu, I didn't really cover that, but it's simultaneously cringeworthy, but also impressive. The quality of the artwork has not improved at all, from what I can tell. Maybe a tiny little bit in certain things, but for the most part, the quality from the point in high school when it was conceptualized to the point of today has not improved at all with quality. And some of you might not even be surprised by that. I personally am, because, like, I'm not the best artist. I've actually tried my hand at arting. I have a distinctive style. And I made a lot of leaps and bounds. I'm nowhere near professional, so I'd have to buckle down on that sometime. But, like, you gradually improve the more you do it. And Christian has definitely been doing it. The problem is, he seems to be fixated on preserving the style he started off with, which looked like something a 3-year-old would come up with, but far be it for me to criticize him for that. I've seen other artists with the similar problem. But anyway, so Christian's notoriety is starting to grow. 4chan is fully, like, you know, enraptured. They realize that who his next target is, and they start, you know, making fun of him behind his back. Meanwhile, he is going to the GameStop more and often, and he's getting into, you know, conflicts with people. For instance, Christian, I already mentioned, is mildly racist. Did I say mildly? I meant very racist. He would always, like, I don't think they were jokes. I think he was legitimately, like, suspicious of African-American children. Like, he would act like they were going to try to steal his cards or things like that, and just treat them poorly on the basis of their skin color. Which is something that right now, especially, a lot of, that's like the big hoopla. You know, you're not supposed to do that, because, you know, that's kind of the dick move, bro. I don't know. He had a weird way of thinking about it. There's one particular altercation, or would-be altercation, where, like, he got angry that he was getting beaten in Pokemon, and he basically says to one fairly large African-American child, like, I'm gonna beat your ass. And the guy was like a gentle giant, but he knew what was up, and he basically got up in a threatening motion. And it's like, what'd you say? And it's like, I mean, beat your ass with this Zap Blast, and plays a card on the table like as a reference to the card game. Yeah, Christian isn't exactly a physically fit person. I mean, maybe not too much that live on the internet are. I can only imagine that, some of you are maybe not the healthiest. Granted, like, you have an excuse. COVID-19 has passed. And I could definitely get back into shape. I need to lose some weight, start hitting the gym, lifting weights, pumping iron. But Christian, just exercise isn't really in their vocabulary, all right? This is a guy that eats McDonald's and TV dinners and anything that's, like, easy. They're kind of like that blobfish, the one that looks like a cartoon character. Anything that's within easy access that falls near them, they're going to eat it. If it's easy, lack of barriers of entry, they're going to eat it. All right, Christian eats the lowest common denominator of food. And for years, that was McDonald's, because they spoke fondly about how delicious and not very nutritious that McDonald's was, and that TV dinners. I mean, people have asked him open-ended questions about, what do you eat? What do you do? What is it that, like, is going on with you? Just really admit to that. And the one time that they ate, like, a little bit of applesauce and acted like that was an achievement about health food. Anyway. So, Christian has, like, been getting into a lot of mini altercations. They took great pride in being a substitute gym leader for a day, which, the person that typically was, like, considered a gym leader for the Pokemon card game, they couldn't show up for whatever reason. So, Christian, like, decided to step in, and he was really just a helper. All he was supposed to do was help kids, learn how to play Pokemon, the card game, I mean, and be able to, like, gain access to tokens and things that were freely available to the community because they were customers, He gets into altercations with one Michael Schneider, who is not too impressed by Christian's activities in the store, all right? Michael Schneider, in spite of the last name, I don't think he's a practicing Jewish individual, but I mention that not because I'm trying to, like, poke fun of him. I'm saying that Christian, being the racist person that they are, that's gonna play into matters in a little while here. But yeah, so a number of different things are happening right now. We've clearly, like, transcended the golden years, which can arguably be Christian's high school years. We are now transitioning into Christian's adult years, where he's considered to be an adult and has to abide by adult things. Something that I forgot to mention is that Christian was encouraged by Bob Chandler to get something called the monthly tugboat. That was Christian's moniker and euphemism for it. Honestly, what I'm trying to say is that Christian was receiving welfare, to the point that they were spending their welfare on very irresponsible things, let's just say. Like, for instance, welfare is supposed to be supplementing your income or being your income entirely to get you groceries, to get you the bare necessities, maybe, like, things that you consider to be a need. For Christian, they gave a portion of it to their parents to help out with bills. And, like, for everything else, they would just spend it on video games and, toys and Hot Pockets and bullshit like that. Because, when you're living on government assistance, you need to waste that money on material goods that aren't really helping you live. I mean, a little bit of vice here and there I would encourage, because you need something to keep you occupied. But, there comes a point where it just goes in excess, and that was definitely Christian, because the reason I mention that is that the trolls actually made a counter, like how much of your tax dollars as Christian wasted or blown away on bullshit like Sonic the Hedgehog, action figures, My Little Pony dolls, Legos. And Legos are expensive, like ridiculously expensive. But they don't pay it for themselves. Anyway, like other things that Christian would do is just, he had to have all of the DLCs for, like, PS3 games, because he was really big into PS3. I mean, a lot of us were, but him especially. It's just crazy how, like, things were sort of, like, meandering along. Megan takes notice of the fact that Christian has access to money, and she doesn't have any money herself. So she basically uses Christian as her personal ATM for a bit to buy some very suspiciously weird things, like Nazi artwork and memorabilia, because she had a thing for Nazis. I'm gonna, like, I'm not trying to, like, drag Megan through the mud when I say all this, but I'm just being real with you all, like, what I found out about her. Because, like, that's kind of weird. I guess she was, like, one of those Nazi uniform fetishists that like the idea of somebody in uniform that's, like, big, strong, and has the sort of look of being an authoritative individual. Those Hugo Boss uniforms, man. Those Nazis knew what they were doing. Thankfully, they didn't completely, though, because we would have lost the war otherwise. Anyway. So yeah, she had a little bit of a, like, weird fascination with Nazi memorabilia. But Christian is becoming more and more prominent online, and he's becoming more and more problematic for the gameplays. And it all boils over to the point where Christian actually enters a contest. It was the Pa Rappa the Rappa, like, contest, where basically you just had to rap a song, and, you know, the winner would get 2 PSPs, which, if you don't know what a PSP is, a PlayStation Portable. They were a thing when I was in middle school, going into high school, I believe, question mark. But, yeah, they were, like, popular enough, and they were doing a giveaway for that, because, you know, that was going to be the grand prize winner. They were also going to get to go to Las Vegas, I believe. Somewhere out in, like, out west. No, wait. Sorry. Not Las Vegas. Evo, I believe. Like, it kind of escapes my mind because, like, I don't really care about, like, those video game conventions that much, but it was, I believe it was Evo. Like, they would have been able to go to, like, the convention center to, like, see the next generation of video games that were going to come out. Christian had devised a crazy strategy that he was going to basically manage to win the PSPs by doing the contest, and win Megan's heart by giving her one of the PSPs, and that when they went to, like, Evo, or, like, Uplex, or whatever the fuck you call it, I'm sorry that I forgot, that they were going to be able to do the dirty at the hotel room. And, you know, he had this crazy, grandiose idea in mind that was just absolutely going to unfold the way that it would. Well, I don't want to spoil it. Let's just get into it. So, not many people actually entered the contest because not many people knew about the contest. I mean, obviously there was a grand prize winner, there was a second winner, and there was a third winner. Christian, I believe he was one of the people that just won some random guff. He didn't get the grand prize. No, that was taken by Adam Stackhouse. Because Adam Stackhouse did a very creative and fun little, like, rap video with his sister that involved cooking. And Christian got super fucking angry. He was convinced that the game was rigged, that Adam Stackhouse had broken the rules, and that, you know, the whole, like, he should be disqualified, even though Christian broke the rules as well. Because, like, one of the rules was that you weren't supposed to have, like, background music playing or something like that. Christian definitely did. So some creative liberties were taken by the judges on who would win and who wouldn't. But in Christian's case, he was fucking out for blood. He was writing angry emails and letters to Sony about how rigged the contest was, and that Adam Stackhouse had cheated, and that Christian was the rightful winner, and that Adam Stackhouse had completely ruined his chances with Megan, and that they were going to find true love out at Evo if only he had won the contest and had managed to get her into his hotel room so they could do the dirty. Fun fact. Megan came out publicly and said that she wouldn't even go with Christian even if he did win. But she'd probably take the PSP because she was kind of a gold digger like that. Yeah, so obviously things are not going too well with Christian and Megan. And Christian's online activities are really getting into a fever pitch here. Namely, the activities of the trolls, because the trolls are, like, poking fun at Chris, ripping up his stuff, metaphorically. They're starting to draw, like, crude pictures of, like, his characters being gender bent and doing things that are antithetical to Chris, because Christian had a tenant when he was doing that, like, you know, video to the future saying, hey, like, it is wrong to be gay. You should only be straight, and you should only go for a girl, because that's the right thing to do. Because, you know, you should deprive yourself of being happy. Like, it doesn't really matter to me if you're gay, straight, or, like, maybe, I don't know, asexual, or, like, pansexual, or whatever. Like, as long as you're doing something that's not hurting other people, and it's making you happy, alright, whatever. And not hurting yourself, preferably. But Christian didn't see it that way. He really does not like the gays, which is ironic, because you'd think, like, if there were more gays out there, if, like, of the US population had, like, a higher proportion of gay people, like gay furries or whatever, then that would leave the dating market for women, like, wide open. Unless the women were also gay. That might pose a problem, you know, for Christian's grand plan, but yeah, just think about it. Like, it's weird, because you'd want more gay people, because that would improve your chances of getting a lady. Even if that were to be the case, I don't think Christian would have that much luck with that, so better luck next time, kid. Or maybe not, because of more recent events. But yeah, so all that was going on, and Christian just, he kind of, like, took it on the chin. But yeah, more people online were sort of doing stuff. They were pulling some dicketry. They were really ripping into Sonic the Hedgehog, or I should say Sonichu, and Rose Chew, and Black Chew, and a racist stereotype of Chew. I don't know. I don't see how mixing, like, cherry cola into somebody's DNA is going to make, you know, somebody's fur black and stuff like that, but, well, Christian logic. Don't think too hard about it. In fact, I'm like convinced that anybody covering, like, Christory, there is a 5% chance that you're going to go to hell, and your incarnation of hell is that you're going to be in CWCville, alright, Quickville, and you're going to have to put up with the bullshit that Christian cooks up for you in the form of his comics. But, like, the comics wouldn't just be comics. They'd be all reality all around you. Maybe that's the secret of the Dimensional Merge. Dimensional Merge happens, and I don't know, I'm getting too far ahead of myself. Anyway, so things are happening at a fever pitch. Like, you know, every day there are more and more people that are just harassing Christian, and Christian actually makes a couple videos just basically saying, hey, like, I just want to set the record straight. You guys say that I'm a badass, a sleaze, like, you know, all this stuff, but you just gotta understand, like, I am Christian. I want to have a daughter named Crystal, a sweet, sweet little girl, and you guys just really need to leave me alone, okay? And that did not help with the trolls. That did not go over with the trolls very well at all, alright? The trolls were just kind of like licking their lips and being like, fresh meat. And, you know, that's sort of how it sort of, like, continued. Because, like, the trolls were just, like, fascinated by how odd and eccentric that Christian was as an individual at this point. And, well, it also caused Christian to do some stupid things that we're going to get into. If it seems like I'm hopping around, you have to understand that I have to focus on one thing or another, because it happens roughly within the same time period, some before or after, but one at a time. So let's start off with this. Christian's response to the trolls. The trolls are increasingly giving him heat. They're attacking his websites, they're attacking his artwork, and he's getting more and more offended by all this and more angry. And it's like a litany of trolls. The one troll that comes to mind most readily, that sort of spearheaded the campaign against Christian, was Clyde Cash. And Clyde Cash, like the troll behind the persona, he used a, like, picture of a Guido, like a stereotypical, like, Italian that had bronze skin and was making, like, a weird expression and was, like, you know, buffed out. Used that as their profile picture, which they don't look like that in real life. Spoiler alert. But Christian was gullible enough to believe that. Yeah, there was, like, I'm not familiar with all the names of the individuals, but this would start a new sort of saga. Because Clyde Cash is always sort of the ringleader. he was like the de facto cool guy in the room that was like on top of things and would definitely see to the miscreants, that's what they call themselves, to like go after Christian and like come up with new and crazy schemes. A lot of comparisons have been made about, you know, Metal Gear to like Christian's life, because it really is kind of like, you know, Metal Gear, just how fucking insane the rabbit hole of stupidity truly goes. But they were called the miscreants, and they would do like very elaborate trolling techniques to try to get information out of Christian, to laugh at him and to prank him online and things like that. And Christian was always considered like the solid snake, or the punished snake, or the fucking shits its like pants and does nothing snake. Yeah, like for instance, one time Clyde Cash is making like an offhand threat saying that he's going to come to Christian's house and like get him or attack him or something like that. And Christian, in true comic book, like cartoon fashion, is like, his solution to the problem was to hide under his bed. But before doing that, he was going to like, he arranged his teddy bear with some sunglasses in the bed and put like the covers up so that it would look like somebody was laying in the bed. And like, obviously, I don't need to tell you that Clyde Cash never showed up. You know, it's like one of those things that some, like for instance, like Counter-Strike Source, you find a squeaker in the server, like a little kid, and like some of your friends start like messing with them. It's like, hey, so where do you live, kid? And it's like, oh, I live in Minnesota. Oh, okay, we're gonna come over to your house and kick your door in and just mess up your place. We're gonna fucking, you know, crash your BS3. We're gonna throw it out the window, and yeah, obviously it's never gonna happen. It's shitty that people do that, but anyway, whatever. It was a long time ago, but some of my friends do have questionable sense of humor. So yeah, Christian was like, you know, like getting harassed by all these trolls, and more trolls seemed to come out by the day to take the piss out of him. Christian fought back the only way he knew how, by drawing his own pornographic imagery. He drew his characters having sex with the proper genitalia that they were assigned at birth. So saith Christian, the Lord, the Savior of no one. Yeah. I'm sorry, like, just so much here. So this gets a little bit more crazy, because like, he drew one particular image. She came for quick, and it's badly drawn. The proportions are all off, but I guess it's the best that Christian could come up with at the time. So-called She Came for Quick because Christian is quite obviously finger fucking like a girl. And a lot of people were excited because they're just like, ooh, is that your fictional daughter that you've been talking about? And Christian was adamant that it was actually his friend Megan. Megan found out, and Megan didn't want anything to do with the trolls, with Christian. She actually got angry at Christian for perpetuating the saga, because Christian was really putting himself out there and just being like, hey, like, you know, you guys need to stop. And, you know, how most people would actually respond to the trolls is either you converse with them, you never feed them. You can try to beat them at their own game, or you can just walk away. The best thing to do is to walk away. But if you have the balls and you have the sense of hit them where it hurts, and you know your enemy, you might try to fight back. Christian, he tried to fight back, but he had no idea what was going on, because he was a gullible boob that just didn't know how the world works, let alone the internet at large. Alright, whatever. Megan got really, really disgusted by Christian. It was not so much the image itself, but it was more the conversation that they had, because, like, Megan goes up to Christian, like, in a direct message, and was like, yo, what the fuck? Why? Like, what the hell did you do? And Christian defended himself drawing. He's like, I regret drawing the drawing. If I could go back in time, I'd stop myself to do it, but I do not regret drawing the drawing. Man of contradictions. And he's like, if I hadn't released my pent-up frustrations and aggravations and sexual frustration, I might have done something really stupid. And Megan kind of filled in the blanks, because it was kind of creepy, like the justification part. It's like, what does that even mean? Like, abducting me and raping me? And Christian had a very tone-deaf response to that. So Megan had enough of Christian's bullshit, alright? She's going to move on with her life. Megan would often say that she was, pansexual, or not pansexual. She was asexual. She didn't have a strong attraction towards men, and she did get a boyfriend later, and she was doing fairly well. But at the same time, it's not exactly an avenue for Christian to pursue. All right. Well, that didn't work out, but Christian actually blamed the trolls for them parting ways. Got really angry at how the trolls kept escalating the situation, and that caused Christian to act the way he did, because Christian can't take responsibility for his actions, because, that would require him to acknowledge that he did something wrong, which is something that not many people like to admit, especially not Christian, but, most of us, we feel a pang of guilt or remorse. He definitely felt lonely after the fact, but, at this point, Megan, his good friend, was out. It gets worse. Christian actually eventually got kicked out of the game place, because Christian, like I said before, has been kind of a menace to society there. He's been hogging all the game consoles, he's been yelling at children, playing card games with them, and just, being an overall jackass. Michael Schneider, the manager there, he was not the owner until much later, but Michael Schneider was not having any of it, so he kicks Christian out. So Christian has lost his latest and greatest sanctuary for the past few years, and has to basically occupy himself at the mall, or going to this place or that place, and just occupy himself as he can. That's important because he actually meets somebody at the mall. I actually forget her name. I want to say I Love Lucy as a moniker for her, but I think she was working at Abercrombie & Fitch. And Christian kind of came over one day, was just pacing around. She actually wrote a detailed recollection story about her experiences with Christian. She referred to him as the Mad Pacer, because Christian's daily activities was that he would just walk around the mall, pace around, thinking, singing to himself, doing weird things, just very uncomfortable things. I'm sure if you just kind of followed Christian and waited and tried to see what he was doing and what they were doing, you would kind of be weirded out by their proclivities or their activities, for that matter. All right, I'm sure most of us would, unless you're that kind of guy that likes to watch a slow-moving train wreck in action and watch it unfold to the very end. But yeah, so yeah, she kind of told about a long, detailed story. I might actually do a reading of that sometime. But the Mad Pacer, she and a coworker kind of waved and smiled at him, because they figured they agreed to doing that if he looked inside of their store again. And they were supposed to put stock up and set up for the store the next day, but they figured that they would do that as their quote-unquote good deed for the day and see how he would react. And Christian was more surprised that it happened, like a deer in the headlights sort of look, and then suddenly waves and starts pacing around at the Abercrombie & Fitch side of things, because I think the across the way was PacSun, and that's usually where Christian would patrol around. But when he noticed that there were some cute girls working at the Abercrombie & Fitch and that they smiled and waved at him, he came over. And supposedly her words, not mine, she was laughing at the fact that he had flood pants, high waters. You call them high waters because most pants go down below the ankles or at the ankles. High waters will go above the ankles because, the expectation is you don't want that dragging in a flood when the water is only a couple inches off the ground. It's only considered nerdy people wear that, or if you're exceedingly tall person, you can't find anything else that's better to wear, you wear that. All right. So Christian was trolling over there, and then he started to come in, and her coworker was like, "Dude, he's coming in," and they strike up a conversation. Christian just awkwardly starts talking to her, and it's saying, "Hey, how you doing?" And obviously, I Love Lucy over here is just kind of talking with them. It's so, you're looking to be about 18, right? And her responses are kind of nodding or shaking her head, because she felt sympathy for him in certain regards, but that sympathy quickly went out the window. And he would be like, so, do angels like you have names? And it's like, yeah, maybe. It's like, oh, okay, well, what's your name? And it's like, I don't go for pickup lines, bub, sorry. It's like, oh, I just wanted to know your name. I just want to get to know you. And I keep forgetting the name off the top of my head. It's like, Candy? Angel? Amy? I'm just going to go ahead and say Amy. It's like, oh, that's a pretty name. And, you know, it's like, so what? I don't know why he asks her what color her eyes are, unless he's got vision problems, which I wouldn't put it past Christian considering they wear glasses, but at the same time, you know, like, they can physically fucking see things, so can't be that terrible. And it's just like, so, what color are your eyes? And she goes to explain, sometimes shade of gray, like, sometimes a shade of green, brown, but mostly a shade of gray. It's like, oh, that's kind of interesting how that works out. Yeah, one of my eyes changed color because I got pink eye in one of them a while back. Tone deaf. He just shares it willy-nilly, something that's going to gross a girl out. No tact, no professionalism, no sense of suave charisma. Just says something like that. Yeah, he's a real Casanova. But, yeah. So, as it was getting close to it, it's like, so, you got a boyfriend? No. And his eyes start to light up and he's getting all excited. It's like, but I'm not looking for one either. And it's like, oh. Well, you want to try to pick up some ice cream after you're done work here? And, well, she's like making excuses about how she has to do inventory in the back and shit like that. Put up displays. And Christian's getting more and more defeated. But at the very end of their interactions, I Love Lucy, aka Amy, admits that she feels no remorse or sympathy for him. She is at the end of her rope because he's so weird. I mean, even her coworker says that. Like, Christian, it's like, so, could I have, like, your phone number or something? And it's like, no. It's like, oh, well, do you have AOL Instant Messenger or something like that? And it's like, no. Oh, well, how about your email address? And she's willing to part with that so that they can have interactions online through email. Which, I guess for the time period, it's not that surprising, but at the same time, like, that is... I guess she's protecting herself. I mean, imagine having, like, being a girl, being moderately attractive, and Christian knows your AOL Instant Messenger. You'd probably block his ass immediately because you probably couldn't deal with the constant ping, 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 ping of, like, messages coming your way. But, yeah. So, Christian, that didn't go over with Christian. He comes over, he goes back to his, like, backpack. The way she describes him, he just walks around with a backpack. And I can understand he has some worthwhile things in there, but he just had his DS in there, was just carrying all this random crap with him everywhere he goes. I'm kind of like that with, like, my notebooks and sketchbooks and stuff like that, but, you know, at least there's a purpose and reason for it, because usually I get stranded somewhere for a while and I need some entertainment for myself. I don't go prowling looking for chicks, like, with a backpack on. That just sounds bad. Like, you know, if you're looking for women, or, you know, men for some of you people, you'd probably look your best, or at least try to. Like, dress your best, look your best, go out there, and try to, like, you know, look presentable and, you know, as good as you can be. Not fucking awkward as hell like you stepped off the school bus. But anyway, Christian, yeah. Exchanged phone, like, email addresses with them, and they sort of became a friend of them. Sort of. They trolled them a little bit, like, at least shared information with the trolls, but, like, later would kind of defend Chris, kind of not really. It's hard to say. Christian is arguably the undefendable in some ways. But, yeah. So anyway, Megan's gone. Christian's getting more and more desperate. He's lost his sanctuary hotspot at, you know, the game place. He needs a plan in action. He needs something to do. He needs something to go after him. And he actually starts to engage in war with the trolls because he's becoming more and more aware of that, like, trolling activities and what's interesting is that his comics start to falter for a bit. I mean, a lot of the comics were about Sonichu. You know, the Sonic the Hedgehog mixes with a Pikachu to make Sonichu. Alright, that's fine. The problem is that the comic over time becomes superseded by Christian, because he's a self-insert character, and, like, Christian, he's basically the de facto mayor of Quickville, and that, like, the way it's been described to me as far as the story goes, because there are some people that actually took the time to research the comic, look at it, to give it a solid review. And their reviews are like liquid gold to me. I would love the internet historian to cover like the ins and outs of Quickville, because like it's described as like an Orwellian, like a crumbling Orwellian nightmare, where like various people are arbitrarily given like the license to kill because they are aligned with Christian, but that license to kill can quickly become revoked if you are found to be like a quote-unquote traitor, and that there are people just constantly rioting in the mall. And for whatever reason, Christian put his like administrative offices, like the place where he would be administering justice, on top of the mall. But he can never administer justice or legislation because people are constantly rioting inside of the mall. Why are these people rioting? Well, let's be honest. If we woke up one day and like found out that Christian was the president of the United States, I'm sure that a lot of you people would be rioting too, alright? If that just magically happened somehow, and it's like, and this just in, Christian Weston Chandler is officially sworn in as President of the United States, you would all probably be like, yo, fuck this noise. Like, let's go out in the streets and riot. So, like, I can only imagine, like, the events of Metal Gear Solid could very well become a reality. Except it wouldn't be Chris Chan being Liquid, like, you know, Solid Snake. It'd probably be Liquid Chris becoming Liquid Snake and, you know, having to take down Chris Chan and some crazy bullshit about the Patriots and the Miscreants, and I don't know. It's just like a very bizarre comic, because what becomes a noticeable theme in the comic is that the comic becomes more about Christian and his interpretation of like his life versus Sonichu, which is the name of the comic series in general. But this only goes so far, and Christian kind of takes a break from doing the comics because, you know, he's got more, like, other things to sort of do. And Clyde Cash uses that as an opportunity to sort of make a name for himself, because Clyde Cash has not really directly introduced himself to Christian yet. Clyde Cash's backstory, fake backstory, is that his little brother really loved reading Sonichu. When the break happened, like, his little brother, like, you know, Picky like Clyde or whatever, Picky Cash or whatever, he's like, you know, getting kind of depressed, and, you know, it was like, are you gonna make more of the comic? And when Chris kept putting it off, he committed suicide. That didn't actually happen all the way. It's just a made-up story that, like, Clyde Cash came up with his backstory as to why he was, like, having beef with Christian. So when that happened, like, he makes, like, a statement to Christian about, like, dude, like, why did you do this? Like, you know, all you needed to do was draw the comic, but now that you haven't drawn the comic, my brother is dead! And Christian's reaction is like, you know, people die all the time. Like, my dog died last year. I don't think it was last year. I think it was a couple years ago. But it's like, I felt really sad that when my dog died. And, like, this is on a video recording, like, it's meant for Clyde Cash, like, addressing his like, you know, communications with Christian. And what's crazy is that, like, you know, Chris, he's very gullible, okay? He believes things usually at face value. But Christian's reaction is, like, kind of, like, tone deaf. Like, he's not really registering that a human being has potentially died because of his own negligence. And instead, he's more impressed that, like, wow, I have the power and ability to make people kill themselves? Holy crap. Which is kind of fucked up, but Christian doesn't really understand the true gravity of the situation at any given time. But anyway, it's partly from that exchange that Clyde Cash and Christian would be like arch nemeses for a long time. And this is about the time where Christian would go through a string of internet girlfriends as part of his love quest. And when I say internet love girlfriends, I mean like they were actually trolls masquerading as interested parties to get into with Christian. But honestly, it was actually a covert op for the trolls to get information on Christian and have fun at his expense. That's the real purpose of the string of fake girlfriends, alright? Because only a few occasions, like with Emily and with Casey, would Christian actually meet somebody in real life to have a date. It was always a setup. There was never, like, the actual desire of the individual to actually be with Christian. Except in one case, but they never met in real life. But I'll get to that. So I actually don't remember a lot of these fake girlfriend names. I just know that the first one that was prominent was, like, Blanca Weiss, which, if you know German, I think that's, like, literally translates to white girl. It might be German and Spanish, and, like, Blanca being like white, and then like Weiss in German is white. So I think it's actually like white. But anyway. Yeah, so like they were supposed to be, they were basically a means by which Christian would give up information freely to get close to the other person. And like Panda Halo was like somebody. They would come up with these strange, elaborate backstories for these internet girlfriends, like why they came to be. Like, for instance, one of them came from like Moldavia. I think they were played by Blue Spike. And Blue Spike was masquerading as this girl from Moldavia. And it got to the point where they were even having a conversation with Bob Chandler. And Bob was like aware of the fact that Eastern Europe is kind of unstable in how countries just kind of, especially after the fall of Yugoslavia, like countries just seem to come up or fade away. I don't know. I would imagine that Bob knew a little bit more about that, but granted, he might have been senile at that point, so who knows. But yeah, like Panda Halo, she came from like the land down under, Australia. Casey was a little bit more homegrown. That's a whole detailed saga in and of itself. But the recurrent theme here, like all you really need to extrapolate from the series of like girls, like internet girlfriends. I'll probably go into a more detailed analysis of all this, but the recurrent sort of theme is that they would try to get close to Christian and try to act like they were an interested girlfriend and try to like enjoy Christian's company, but really it was just a means of getting information out of them. Like, for instance, Blanca Weiss like asked for Christian's medallion. Something that I haven't mentioned so far is that Christian as a person, like his throughout, like, and this isn't really problematic for me to mention at this point, like, because it's basically applicable to a good many years that he's just around and functional. He would wear the same like striped polo shirt that his mom got at a Goodwill, like a cartoon character would. Like, always the same or similar outfits, to the point that people actually took notice and would actually make detailed, like, charts to identify each piece of, like, clothing. And he would always wear a Model Magic, medallion around his neck that displayed prominently Sonichu. I think he even went out in public wearing that crap, which, if that's not, like, chick repellent, I don't know what is. But Blanca Weiss asked for, that particular medallion. Christian's just kind of like, alright, well, here you go. And sends it over. And it's at that point that a video appears where the trolls have access to the medallion. They cut it up into pieces. They put it into pickle brine. Christian, his hatred of homosexuals is so great that he doesn't like pickles, because it reminds him of a dick. He can't have that. Even fucking Sonic Boom, the cartoon show, actually referenced that because they made it so that Sonichu, or I should say Sonic the Hedgehog, hates pickles. Like, freaks out whenever, like, pickles pop up, and it's like, bleh! I don't want that. But yeah. In fact, they actually made a character based off Christian on Sonic Boom. Some aardvark-looking motherfucker. Anyway, so yeah. They do that video. The video ends with a fucking, like, medallion chopped up into little pieces, and then it's set on fire. And a lot of trolls have taken, like, music and just played it over that, like a little music video, which is crazy to me, but that's okay, I suppose. Like, it's not like crazy bullshit hasn't already happened to Christian already. Like, we're only getting into all this, like, the fictional girlfriend stuff. Alrighty. So, all this is going on. Clyde Cash is pretty much a prominent presence in the troll network. Blanca Weiss, what the recurrent theme that would happen with a lot of these internet girlfriends is that when they could not get any further information out of Christian, or get Christian to do anything funny or anything like that, they'd basically, like, kill off the fake internet girlfriend, act like, you know, a disaster happened. Like, for instance, Panda Halo, that was the same weekend that they quote-unquote died, was the same weekend that the Black Sunday fires happened in Australia, and Christian was aware of the fact that Panda Halo was from Australia, so just completely, like, cut contact, and Christian filled in blanks was just like, I guess she's gone. I guess she's gone. Yeah. It's kind of socially, emotionally manipulative, but I guess the rationalization that the trolls had was that nobody actually died. We just hurt an autistic man-child's feelings a little bit. It's okay, he's gonna bounce right back. It is kind of weird to me that Christian will bounce back quickly from a tragedy. Like, fairly quickly. But, you know, so it goes. As for Blanca Wise, she died in a spectacular way. I'm struggling for the life of me. I might have to do some research after this part 1 of this video, but like I'm struggling for the life of me. What, like, fake internet girlfriend? Oh, wait, I remember now. Do you know why I remember? There's a particular quote that has been attributed to Christian. It will go down as in history as his quote. Julie! 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 I was mentally repressing it because of the amount of cringe I felt when I first heard Christian saying that. Blue Spike came up after Blanca Weiss, I believe. And Blue Spike actually is the one, like, playing Julie. Actually got into a conversation with Bob about their country and acting very coy when Bob asked them about, like, to describe, like, talk to them about themselves. And the problem with Blue Spike, well, I shouldn't say problem with Blue Spike, this is more of an indicative of a problem with Christian. Christian can't seem to discern differences in voice, you know what I mean? Like, for instance, like, Blue Spike would play, like, himself, like Blue Spike, but he would also play, you know, Julie. And all he would do is do, like, a falsetto, like, accent and just, you know, be like, oh, hi there, Chris. And it was like the tonal differences in shift and pitch were not very far apart. Because it just sounds like a 13-year-old boy. Maybe whispering a little bit, but not that different from when they're acting like, you know, their evil persona, like Mark or whatever. Because there comes a point in their engagement together, like, they did a lot of phone sex, okay? Because Christian thought he was dealing with, like, an 18-year-old girl. Blue Spike was 13 at the time, but that's going to take greater significance later. Blue Spike was engaged with Clyde Cash, like, at that point. Not engaged, like, romantically. I mean, like, engaging as in to coordinate fuckery with Christian. And they would just basically troll the hell out of him. And Christian didn't know the difference because, you know. But as he got to know Julie more and more, and they did more and more phone sex, you know, there comes a point where, like, Blue Spike, he takes Julie hostage. Or I should say Mark, takes Julie hostage. Christian, you have a mission ultimatum. You need to go save your fictional girlfriend that you have never laid eyes on in real life, or have gone after, or have even seen a picture of. Actually, never mind. He did see pictures, but they were all fake, of course. Christian was too dumb to do reverse image search on Google. But yeah, you gotta save her, Chris. Chris, you gotta be the solid snake that you were born to be to go save your fictional internet girlfriend. And, you know, Christian was basically spoon-fed some information that his girlfriend had been kidnapped, and that the location of the kidnapping was somewhere in Ohio. they actually directed Christian to a bad neighborhood, and Christian, rather than call the police or do anything like really productive to the situation, he rolls up his sleeves and says, I'm taking to the road. I'm going to take care of this myself. Because Christian, at this point, he did not like the cops at all. All right, he wasn't going to call the cops for any reason. He just figured he was going to live life like an action hero and go out himself. And to quote Bill McDonough, who does he think he is? John Bloody Wayne? So, like, Christian actually took the family car and decided, like, he was going to go all the way from Ruckersville, Virginia, all the way up to Ohio. And I'm kind of impressed by Chris, because he did it on a $50 budget, and when people asked him about it after the fact, he had receipts to prove that he did it. He paid tolls, he went to McDonald's at least twice, and he got gas. And anyway, needless to say, the kidnapping never actually happened, because Julie and Mark, or Blue Spike if you prefer, are all the same people, and Christian was duped. So Christian, like, he's directed to an old woman's house in a bad neighborhood, and he basically asks her about where Julie is and where the kidnapping happened, and she's just like, dude, I don't have any idea what you're talking about. So Christian goes in defeat. Like, that's gotta be, how many hours of a drive is that on a good day? Like 5, 6, 7 hours? I drove to Connecticut once. Big mistake. Like, driving from Maryland. I think that was about 6 to 7 hours drive. But you know what? It was an interesting trip. I think the only reason it was that long for me, though, is because you had to pass through New York, and Connecticut drivers are pretty bad. Anyway. So, Christian, he makes the round trip in less than 24 hours, which is very impressive. Some people have actually gone far enough to say that that's proof that Christian is, like, high-functioning autistic, or, like, at least maybe is, like, pretending to be autistic to, you know, garner sympathy or act. But, yeah, they come back home. Chris's parents, Bob and Barb, are pretty much freaking out and have called the police, and Christian's just kind of like nonchalantly like, what's with all the police here, Ma? And they question him about where he went and what he did, and he just explains, it was a bad laid. It was a bad laid. And they ground him and forbid him from going that far out from, like, the state, like, ever again, because it's just like, dude, all these terrible things could have happened to you. So yeah, that didn't really turn out so well. Anyway, Christian is given a new ultimatum. He has to either, like, give up his PS3 account, or, like, sacrifice PS3, his account, all the games that he's downloaded up to this point, all of the purchases he's purchased up to this point. He has to give all that up to receive Julie. Sacrifice it for Julie. And Christian at first does, and they're just like, okay, give it to us so we can give you Julie. And Christian's just like, wait, I did the morally right thing. That means I should get both Julie and the PS3 account. Because, Christian has been watching too many My Little Pony cartoons and anime to, like, pick up on the trope that when you do good things, you get rewarded, even though in real life, that's not really how real life works. So yeah, they give him a new ultimatum, because, like, people have, like, meticulously hacked Christian's, PSN account. And I guess it's not really that hard to do, because he doesn't seem to know the complexity of, like, making a good password or anything like that. But, yeah. Anyway, they give him a new ultimatum. To get Julie back, he needs to cut up his medallion and shove it up his ass. And he actually does so. And I believe that was the video that gets submitted onto Pornhub. And yeah, I really hope it got taken down, because I'm sure that would have caused a lot of problems. I'm not sure if it was actually recorded. I remember there was a video like it. No, wait, it was a different video, sorry. The trolls tried to do that. See, they had an oversight. They didn't realize that, like, nobody was recording the video at the time of Christian shoving, like, pieces of his medallion up his ass. And, like, they actually tried to get Christian to give those recordings over to them. And Christian, thankfully, did not actually give it to them because, you know, he knew not well enough not to. Okay, so that all to be said. Christian is finally reunited with Julie. And they decide to have some phone sex. And really, the interpretation of phone sex is that sometimes Christian would record himself having sex with one of his sex dolls, like Officer Nasty or Momi-chan or whatever. Yeah, he bought some sex dolls. I'm not sure how he kept that a secret from his parents. But considering they're dolls, you can probably just fold them up and hide them under the bed. No harm, no foul. And considering the fact that Christian is usually always in his room, no risk of the parents to uncover it, and Christian's parents are pretty much hoarders anyway, so... yeah, probably safe there, buddy. Alright. All this is going on, and he's having sex with one of the sex dolls, and like it's supposed to be saying what he's going to do to Julie if you were there. I'm just going, Julie! 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 Anyway. Comes back to the, like, feed to talk to Julie over, I guess, Skype or whatever they were using at the time. And Julie finally has something to say. Chris, can we talk without the fans for 1 second now? It's like, yeah, I'm here. Like, let's talk about it. It's like, Chris, there's something I need to tell you. This whole time, Chris, you've been having sex with a 13-year-old boy, you sick fuck. Yeah, I'm gonna hand all your data to Chris Hansen, so you better get out of here, you pedophoric you. I don't know why that is stuck in my mind. Like, it's been a long fucking time since I heard all that. But I guess, given recent events, I'm just remembering it all. Kind of like a repressed memory, because, like, obviously I'm getting some shit here wrong. But it's just my oral retelling based on memory, so, you know, take it what you will. But yeah, so Christian finds out that Julie is actually not Julie. It's actually just Blue Spike. A lot of people actually condemned Blue Spike because they thought that Blue Spike had gone above and beyond what would have been considered trolling and like normal things. And Blue Spike actually got a lot of pushback from people, probably for the best, but at the same time, you know, the damage is already done. Because the trolling never stopped at this point. I mean, if, like, people were truly angry about that and going to be, like, you know, saying things, then they would probably put an end to it all. But, yeah, the trolling continued in earnest. Like, after a brief reprieve, you know, you gotta come up with new ideas and new strategies, because Christian, for as gullible as he is, he's not so gullible that anything's going to work on him again. Except for attracting, like, a girlfriend. Because, like, you know, fake internet girlfriend, I should say. Which is really just a troll. Troll doing the deep, dark, dirty, and trying to get the ins and outs of what Christian is all about. But, yeah. So, like, Blue Spike got a lot of pushback from, like, fellow trolls. For good reason, but at the same time, you know, Blue Spike was like a 13-year-old kid. They probably didn't know any better. You should know better. But given how, like, Blue Spike acts, yeah, maybe not. So, Christian is kind of heartbroken for a bit, because the revelation came out, and that's just like, damn. So, yeah, that saga was long and dirty. Anyway, it's getting to be almost, like, 2 hours that I've been talking about this. I haven't even fucking scratched the surface. So, I'm probably going to make a part 2 to this. And try to, like, condense it a little bit more. I do apologize if this has triggered any emotions that are considered to be, like, you know, stricken by the information I've shared with you all. This is purely from memory, based on what I know of him, read of him, and heard about him. So, you know, take it with a grain of salt. You know, some of the things I've said, I already tried to make declarations and, you know, assertions based on what I already know. But there is a lot of gray areas that, while well documented, the source should be considered, you know, with some level of professional skepticism or due diligence in studying your source material. Because, you know, the whole reason that Encyclopedia Dramatica and, you know, the Kiwi Farms and places like that were made was because of Christian. There was just so much material. In fact, I should have told you in the early days, I forgot to mention this, Christian was kind of dumb because he made an account for himself and would edit the, like, descriptions of him and any information that was listed on the website to more positively or accurately reflect him. And he would sign his name that he was the one that lit the edits, which obviously got him, like, booted out, but, you know. And the worst thing about it is, like, all those 3 websites, he actually fed the trolls information to do something called an information overload, which no one was ever really clear about. I can kind of see that. In the face of a lot of information, it, like, increasingly more complicated and bizarre information, you might be, like, having that deer in the headlights look for a minute, but you're probably not going to have that for very long. I mean, it's just going to be, like, you're going to process all that information after a few minutes and then go right back to doing what you were doing. So, yeah. Christian wasn't very successful in his war against the trolls, but that will be a tale for next video. I do hope you enjoy this oral retelling of Christian's life story. I do apologize if I've triggered any of you, or maybe, you know, this is too meandering or inaccurate for you. But again, this is like something that is my understanding of Christian. What comes to mind when I think of Christian's life story as like a basic timeline. I'm talking about like the relevant stuff. I'm not talking about like all of the stuff that like between the time he was born to the time that he appeared on national TV for the sweepstakes, the Toys R Us sweepstakes, or that he appeared on TV again later, because we haven't even gotten to the darker, like, things that happened in Christian's life, the things that Christian is truly guilty of. That will be in next video, because there's just so much to cover. Kind of like the Isabella Janke story. But, as with always, separate videos, I'll try to distinguish between the two. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Till next time, guys, take care and peace. I hope you all have a better one.